Hello, 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 and welcome to episode number 21 of Fast Casual, Landed's official podcast, brought to you today from a lot of different places, from Boca Raton, Louisiana, and from Ireland. My name is Alex Mann, and I'm your host again, and it's great to be back after a week's break. As I like to say, every restaurant has a story, and so without further delay, let's get the show on the road. I'm delighted to say I'll be chatting with Mark Simpson, the Interim Chief People Officer at Red Robin. Say hi, Mark.
Hi, Mark.
Exactly. All right, Mark. So, give us a bit of an introduction because you're a well-seasoned operator, having spanned a range of different companies in hospitality over a number of years, in various leadership positions. I'd love to get a little spiel into your background there and get a bit of insight.
Good. Glad to do it. Well, first of all, I'm actually in Baton Rouge, right?
Sorry.
Baton Rouge, Louisiana. So
my God.
we're okay. But you know what? Right now in the winter, I'd prefer to be in Boca Raton, but that's for sure.
Oh my God.
That's good. No problem. There's always one thing, right? So, born here in South Louisiana, went to LSU. And then when I got out of school, I went into the restaurant business, and I started as a manager trainee, believe it or not, with Piccadilly Cafeterias, which is a cafeteria chain. It was based here in the Southeast and was growing pretty rapidly, and bought a full service seafood restaurant. Was with them 4 or 5 years, and they pulled me out of operations into recruiting. So I cut my teeth in the human resource world and the recruiting world a long time ago, back when they had to mail resumes and then the faxes came out. So when you go that far back, as far back as I do, you can remember a few of the olden days, the golden times. So spent a number of years with Peasant Restaurants. They went public with Morton's Restaurant Group, and were formerly Quantum Restaurant Group. And they put us up for sale, and I moved on and spent a short period of time with Ruby Tuesday Incorporated. Had purchased a company called Tia's Tex-Mex. It was a Mexican chain out of Dallas, and I was going to be their head of HR there, their director of HR. And I was there for a short period of time, and got a call to come back home and work with a guy named Al Copeland, who was the founder of Popeye's Fried Chicken and was going to grow a Cajun concept called Copeland's of New Orleans. And when I went to work there in the mid 90s, I ended up working for a guy named G.J. Hart, who is obviously the CEO of Red Robin currently. And I followed G.J. from Al Copeland Investments to Texas Roadhouse in 2000. I think G.J. went in April or May of 2000, and I ended up going in August of 2000. And I had a 21-year stint there with Texas Roadhouse. We started probably 70 or so restaurants, be $100 million in revenues. And I think at this point in time, they're going to hit 700 restaurants, 49 states, and I don't know, about probably a dozen foreign countries. So pretty much all in the human resources world, the people world. At Texas Roadhouse, we called it the legendary people department, and at Red Robin, we're the people department as well. So it's been a great ride, fantastic 35-year plus career. Not to age myself there, but it's been a great ride. So appreciate the warm welcome, Alex.
No, I'm delighted to have you. And it's interesting because, you've run the gamut of the people aspect within hospitality. And, it's interesting because you kind of got out of say Texas Roadhouse, or legendary people rather. Just in my notes, that's what that's called. So I presume
that's what it is.
That is what it is. And that was at the back end of COVID. And,
it was.
And I'm curious, just off the bat, what you saw before and after, because obviously your before is your whole career, and then you literally are kind of out the gate on the other side of COVID. So you had to navigate that experience as well. What was the sort of what were the trials and tribulations like for you as you were coming to the end of your sort of career there?
Yeah. I retired September 1st, 2021 was my last day at Texas Roadhouse. I was blessed to have a 21-year career with them. And it was phenomenal every step of the way. Obviously, I think everyone's heard all the stories about COVID, and obviously one of our industry was one of the hardest hit industries that there was. Having to flip, at the time at Texas Roadhouse, we were running about 6% in to-go sales. And then all of a sudden, all of our dining rooms were closed. So we went basically to, 6% of our revenues, which, we're not going to make it there. So, but fortunately we had a lot of cash. We were able to, leverage, the banks and borrow some money as well. That way we were set. So we knew we were going to make it out of there. It was just a matter of how do we build sales? And it was truly amazing. And obviously our founder's book, Kent Taylor's book, Made from Scratch, he has an entire chapter or two dedicated to this. And, it was amazing to watch the ownership mentality of the operators just start figuring out how to do things, right? You had people actually put a drive up window. They built a drive up window on a Texas Roadhouse. They put, cabanas out front where people could come up and get their to-go. We took the interior waiting area and made that an entire to-go area. And really focused on making that the majority or the main part of the operation. So really flipping it on its head. And obviously all the people issues we have with people going out sick and, the COVID pay and all the things that we had to figure out on the fly. So, from that perspective, it was very challenging, but very rewarding to make it through it. The executive team worked really well together, arm in arm, hand in hand. I think for the first 6 or 7 weeks, we had 4 calls a day, 7 days a week. It was nonstop for, a couple months. And then I think we got into a groove and we still had calls, almost every day. But, we finally figured it out and weathered the storm. So, like everyone else, we came out on the other side and now we're trying to continue to get back to normal.
Yeah. It's interesting, one of the people, like I said, I'd reference other people within this podcast now that I've done so many. And one of the guys I had on, his name's Brian Nowicki. He was the director of operational excellence at Dave & Buster's. Yep. And we were talking about what happened, like COVID with him, and with their business. Cause again, very similar. It's very indoor experience, theirs is entertainment, for example, with food. And he used the phrase a culture reset, whatever sort of bubbling sort of tensions within the culture or struggles with the culture of the organization, that it enabled them to have a reset and an unlock for the post-COVID experience. And it's sit down, okay, what are we doing right? What are we doing wrong? And how do we go forward here with very much focusing on the employees and the staff that they have, that it's almost like a reset there. Do you when you think about COVID, do you think about that in terms of your experience at the Texas Roadhouse, but also now in terms of it almost forced people to be way more employee focused again, they shift a lot of the focus onto the employees?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that was your first priority was employees, and then it was staffing after that. I think for us it was, at Roadhouse, we were very resistant to changing in the past, right? We just didn't change a lot of things. We didn't implement a lot of things. We didn't roll out a lot of things. We tested things to death. To death, to make sure whatever we put in was going to work and wasn't going to slow down the machine that Texas Roadhouse had become. And I think what we learned at Roadhouse was that we could change and we could change quickly. And so I think from that perspective, for the company moving forward, right, I'd have to tee that up to, Patrick Sterling there now in the people department and Chris Colson, who's in the administrative and strategic role and legal role, and Jerry Morgan, the CEO. I'd have to tee that up, and Gina Tobin, the president. I'd have to tee that up to them to see how are they dealing with change. But I would imagine that they are, okay with change now and can adapt and move a lot faster than we did before. I think at Red Robin, I think they were, from what I can gather in my 8 months there as the interim chief people officer. I guess I'm actually not really the interim chief people officer anymore. I don't really know what I am, because then we hired Megan Spuler, who came in, who had been with Bloomin' Brands and Outback for close to half a dozen years in the past. She started on December 11th. So she's the chief people officer now, and I'm not sure what I am. So I'm just here to help and play.
You're the savant.
Any kind of role I can play, I guess. So I think Red Robin, was very used to change, and they changed things very frequently, and they did quarterly LTOs. They made a lot of changes all the time. So I think coming in here, it was one of the things that I've seen is that they were very used to change, and now they're saying, okay, we've made a lot of changes, and let us get good at it now. Let us get good at what we're doing. So we can talk about that here in a second as we talk about
Totally.
things that are going on. But so I think, that's the one thing COVID did is it got you really focused on your people and really focused on adaptability to circumstances, which in our industry, we probably lagged every other industry.
Which is interesting you say that because, as my background obviously is more like in technology and like sort of quote unquote startups and fast pace and all the kind of buzzwords that go with it. There was probably the best boss I ever had. She, her name's Molly Graham. She was very early in Facebook and very early at a bunch of other startups and has done phenomenally well. And she wrote a brilliant article I'll send to you, and I'll put it in the notes for this as well, called Giving Away Your Legos and Other Disciplines. And she talks a lot about, flexibility and adaptability in a fast-paced environment where change is just the operating order of the day. And so your job spec is your job spec, but how do you not be wedded to your job spec? That like, if you're required to do something over here, are you comfortable and adaptable enough to be able to do it, and thus help make that change happen within the organization? And I think a lot about that when, like, to your point about hospitality, where, there's so many organizations and it's like this sort of like thunderbolt meteorite, whatever sort of metaphor you want to use, or like macroeconomic impact that happened and forced people to like adapt or effectively die. Do you know what I mean? Like that, and it's amazing to hear, you speak so candidly about that and see success come out the other side and be able to like say like your Roadhouse never really changed. It would test everything to the nth degree to make sure that it was appropriate for the organization to like do. But like that type of like, no, now you need to do curbside pickup. Now you need to do windows. Now you need to do all these things because your business will not survive otherwise is kind of like amazing that it's kind of, and I hear this from so many leaders like yourself that like that switch happened because of COVID, that now large hospitality organizations, now it's a fundamental part of like, leadership within those orgs. It's like, the comfortability of flexibility and the comfortability of adaptability and change, which quite clearly didn't exist really before, is kind of amazing for me to hear,
Exactly. No doubt. Agree.
But I guess on that, running on that is like, so you were like, oh, I'm just going to go into a comfortable retirement.
Yes.
I'm going to like relax and play a bit more golf. I'm going to watch LSU try and play football. And
exactly. We're trying hard.
We're trying so hard, and, probably be in a sort of quasi consultant role for like friends and, ex-colleagues and like take those cold calls. But instead you were sprung into action rather, to come into Red Robin and like help turn around the people org within sort of the organization. And I'm curious, like what it took for you to like be sprung out of action, like what kind of challenges you saw, and like effectively the flip side of a challenge is an opportunity. So like what kind of opportunities did you see for yourself to like come in and turn around such a large organization?
Yeah, it's a great question. There's probably only very few people that I would have come out of retirement for. I was enjoying being back home in Baton Rouge and going to all my LSU sporting events and playing a little golf with friends and being around my family. My wife and my family, we're all basically all here. So it was definitely an interesting time when I got the call from GJ, but I wouldn't be where I am without him. And he's a phenomenal leader and a phenomenal person, and I owe a lot to him. And when he called and said, "Hey, I knew he had taken over as the CEO in September of 2022, and we texted and we stayed in touch."
Yeah.
And he picked up the phone and he said, "Hey, I need you." He goes, we've making some changes on the leadership team, and we really want to get this thing going in the right direction. We want to create a partnership program and really an ownership mentality. And he goes, I really need you. And I said, well, let me talk to my wife. And it was the summertime, and it was probably the hottest summer on record in South Louisiana. So it was actually good timing to get to Denver, and fly back to Denver, which was a little bit cooler.
Exactly.
But it was, everybody told me it didn't rain there, but it rained a lot when I first got there. But so, I think that's what brought me out. And literally I just went in initially, listen and learn and help. And I knew we were going to roll out a managing partner program. I knew there were a lot of new executive team leaders, and so it was fun to be a part of that. Right, I've never been experienced this kind of situation where you come into a 50-year-old company that has a very well-established culture and try to figure out how to maneuver and move that into a different realm, so to speak, right? Taken from a really top-down management company to an operationally focused company where the operators can get to make the decisions. And so that's been challenging and a lot of fun. And we rolled out a market partner program earlier this year. That's the multi-unit managers. And so now they're all getting a piece of the profits. And you could see the change taking place and the questions getting asked about the P&Ls and the accounting and things that weren't asked before, right? Because now all of a sudden they're getting a piece of the pie.
Yeah.
We're literally in the final stages of the communication of rolling out a managing partner program to general managers, individual unit general managers or single unit general managers. We call managing partners, the market partners, again, obviously the regional partners, which are like the regional vice presidents, and then all the other managers, whether it be a kitchen manager, an assistant general manager, a service manager, whatever it might be, all of their bonus plans are changing, right? They're all going to be based on some type of profit line in the organization. So the total rewards team, the comp team, has done a phenomenal job. And as of 1/1, we'll go live with this. But I think, building the partner program and the partnership mentality is really the key. And obviously that's going to take time here over the next year to 2 or 3 years. And I know Megan, coming in with her experience from Bloomin' Brands, is going to add a lot of value to that as well.
It's interesting. And when you came into the organization, like you kind of step in on day one, how do you survey like that landscape? Are you like, I know exactly what I need to change, or like you knew like there were certain programs that you knew would like be your quick wins? Like, how did you come in and say, okay, the managing partner program, that sort of partner mentality, like were there sort of like keystone sort of ideologies that you had that you wanted to like implement, or did it take a while just to understand specifically what were the things and then go implement them?
Yeah, I don't think, I didn't have any preconceived notions of what I wanted to do, because obviously it's a different company than Texas Roadhouse is. And obviously the sales volumes are different, the profit levels are different. So there's a lot of differences. So really, I just wanted to listen and learn, as I said, and help in any way I could. And obviously GJ, was an integral part of I knew what direction he wanted to go, and he really wanted to create a service culture within the organization and a service culture within the people department. So I think that was one of the first things that we really worked on. Is I can remember saying I don't consider myself an HR guy or HR pro. I consider myself a restaurant person first, a business person second, and then an HR person after that. So I really look at it from a restaurant perspective, from a business perspective, and then the HR lens has to come in to make sure, we're doing things the right way. So I think that was my initial approach, was, really sit with the folks on the team, sit with the leaders in the company, and just talk and listen to them, and listen to the struggles, listen to the things that were working well, listen to the things that may not have been working well. And this just kind of attack those things one at a time, and really, know that we're there to support the operators. There were things in place regarding some disciplinary measures where, the chief people officer had to be involved in every single one of them. And I'm like, well, that's impossible. We've got
so many locations, so many people.
Yeah, you've got great experience. You're very good at what you do. You're a professional, and I trust you. And I trust you to do the right thing there. And then if you need me, if you need my, my opinion on something, then obviously reach out and I'll be glad to help you. So I think freeing people up a little bit and allowing them to trust their instincts and trust their education and trust their knowledge and their experience and what they do. The team is very tenured. You've got the field people leaders. I don't know, 16 years or so. We have a VP of L&D and HR who's been around 16 or 17 years. And we have another person in what I call people operations, who's really kind of the glue of the department, who's been around in 14 years or so.
Yeah.
You've got a lot of people with a lot of Red Robin experience. And I didn't want to come in and, change their world. I just wanted to, adapt it to making them, I really wanted to help them be more successful. What can I do to help them be more successful? And it worked very well.
It's interesting. I think about that a lot, just like even in my own sort of role, which is like, how do you give a voice to everybody and then apply what you hear? That sort of like human-centric sort of research, which is like, what are the themes? What are the patterns of things that people are saying to me? Because I can get the data and it'll tell me what, but when I sit down with people, they kind of tell me why. And it's interesting because like, I guess the people that'll be listening to this podcast or this episode or wherever they are in Ireland or in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, which I will not live down, is like, I guess like people who are trying to implement change in culture, because it's just a hard thing to like make a change because it's very much stems from the top. But like when you were hearing certain things, like, like the sort of thematic things that you were hearing. So like I heard this from 15, 20 people. So like there must be something here where there's sort of like outlying sort of like kind of cultural issues that you can speak to. Like, as in, if somebody was hearing this, they're like, oh, we kind of have that thing too. Like, I'd be curious if like there's a trend like across all sort of hospitality that you had kind of landed on that you wanted to fix versus like where there are specific sort of Red Robin issues.
Yeah. Probably not. I think, at Red Robin, I think, in the last 5 to 10 years, they've been through so many leadership changes that I think that they were, they operated a little bit out of maybe fear of reduction in forces, layoffs, things that I never did in my past life at Roadhouse, and I never had to consider. So I think, that was part of it. So I think really, trying to create synergies within the department itself, the people department itself, whether it's the field people team, the people advisor team, kind of the employee relations team, whether it be total rewards, whether it be the restaurant support, people team in conjunction with our HRIS functions and, our workday teams, really try to create synergies to get everybody on the same page. And I think that's really what we worked at. And it's the same thing that GJ did coming in, right? He created the North Star, plan, which I think obviously has been out there that everybody can see, and, really wanted to transform the company into an operations driven company, and then elevate guest experience and a number of other things as well. And, he went about it in a way where, he hosted town hall meetings, and he would go out to, 15 or 16 or so cities. And then the managing partners would all come in and he would present the plan to them. And before he even started presenting the plan, he would lay out, he would ask questions and say, hey, what are your concerns? What are your fears? What are you worried about? And he would get all these questions from them.
Yep.
And he said, my goal is, as we go through this presentation, and Jesse Griffith, the head of operations, was part of it as well. As we go through this entire presentation, I want to make sure I answer all your questions. And at the end of it all, they went back and they made sure somebody wrote down the questions, and they went back to make sure they answered every question. So again, giving the operators the feeling that, hey, we as an executive leadership team, GJ obviously, and the executive leadership team, we're going to be there for them, not the other way around, right? They're not there for us. We're there for them. And so I think that started it. We created, we also rolled out, and these are things that we've done in our past life at Texas Roadhouse, and I think GJ had done at California Pizza Kitchen and Torgy's as well. But there were, we call it Leadership Advisory Panel. And we just had the first Leadership Advisory Panel just a few weeks ago. And we brought in about 3 managing partners from the 5 different regions. So about 15 managing partners, a couple of the multi-unit managers of the market partners, and a few of those, and a couple partners as well. And really it was a Q&A session with them. Hey, what's working? Okay. And okay, that's great. We're glad to hear that. But what's not working? What do we need to help you with? Right. So now we've got a list of items that we can take action on. We can follow back up with the operators so they know we're serious and we know we're going to help them, create that great, ability for them to really drive their sales and revenues. They're going to be moving to a managing partner program where they're getting a percentage of the profits, and their base salaries are dropping, right? So we're dropping their base salaries, but they're getting a percent of the profits. And there's 13 4-week periods in the fiscal year. So every other paycheck, so you get paid every 2 weeks, every other paycheck, they're going to get a bonus check basically, which is really nice versus waiting a quarter, right? Because right now they have to wait a quarter. And if they don't hit one thing, they may not get their quarterly bonus. So now it's very easy. It's very simple. It's going to be based on that income of their restaurant. And, so they'll be able to figure that out very easily. And if they want to make more money, they need to drive revenue. So the things that we're going to do is we're going to build the support, whether it be in the people department, whether it be in the learning and development department, marketing, really working with them to do local store marketing, because really, from Red Robin's perspective, the local restaurant marketing is going to be a big part of driving revenues. That was a huge part of what we did at Texas Roadhouse. You've never seen a national Texas Roadhouse ad ever, and they've continued to outperform the entire industry. And there's no national TV ads. So it's amazing. It's because they do everything.
I have lots of opinions on those. As somebody who buys them for a living, let me tell you.
I mean, the local restaurant marketing is the key. And so really working with those folks and having them do fundraisers and having them be a part of their community, give back to their community, because giving's always been a big piece of Red Robin's culture. And I think that's the other thing. I think it's not like we're having to recreate the wheel. I mean, we're going back to a scratch product, right? We're going back to an awesome product, and we want to have awesome American food and bottomless fun, right? That's the mission. We want to be the best loved restaurants and brand in the communities they serve. So that's the vision. So we're going back to the basics of what made Red Robin successful. As a matter of fact, one of the initial things that GJ did was started earlier this year. He'd only been in place probably 3 or 4 months. Is we started taking out the Nico ovens that they cooked all the burgers on. They ran them through a char broiler, almost like Burger King, to be honest with you. And we ripped them out of all over 500 restaurants, and we put flat top grills in every restaurant. And we improved the burger. I mean, about 80% of the menu has been touched.
You were saying.
So, and obviously the burgers were the main focus initially. And now as we continue to move forward, right, we can tweak and add other things that will attract, the families, right? If you bring in the kids and they always want a burger, not everybody wants a burger every single meal. So really building on that, having a better, juicier burger. And what's really funny is when you think about putting a piece of new equipment in a restaurant that you cooked your main product on, you think about flipping your restaurant operations completely upside down. And what we found was the speed, the ticket times, right, for those items were actually faster, and we were actually setting hourly sales records, believe it or not, right out of the gate. So I think that, again, that goes back to their adaptability and ability to change. So I think a lot of these things have been really, worked on, and GJ's vision with this North Star plan is to really create that partnership synergy between the restaurants and the restaurant support center to make sure that it's a win-win. Everything should be a win-win. They should win, and we should win, and we should all win together.
It's interesting because the ownership mentality again is something interesting to me, because I think a lot of sort of the operators and the owners of the individual restaurants, whichever, are very much entrepreneurial in and of themselves. And so to be able to run a restaurant individually and make it a success, it's almost giving them extra juju to really improve the standard and the quality of the restaurant. And I think, I hear you talk about sort of local advertising in particular. And again, that brings it home to the operator of that restaurant, that it's the marketing is stemming from you and for you. You see TV ads all the time, or you're watching football for every single brand. And it's there's obviously a disconnect between local restaurant owner and TV national ad, because it's like that ad's just running and it's just like whatever. Versus like to your point, it's putting far more onus on the individual operators to like make a success of theirs. And if they can make it a success, it also leads to like more just money in everybody's pocket there, which is like sort of the name of the game here. And so I guess like you guys you're what, 8 months into your interim position, which ended 9 days ago. So you've formally given away your Legos, so to speak.
Correct.
And so I'm just because it's so fast changing now that like this ownership mentality that you're kind of putting on, like, I mean, how many locations are there nationally?
Over 500.
Over 500.
520-ish.
Yeah, 520. That's a lot of ownership mentality to spread across. And so, like, it sounds like you're deeming this a success already, like like an early success, so to speak, that like there has been buy-in to this program. Were they like crying out for this kind of support? It's like, help us help you. Like, is that where people have been feeling that you just needed leadership to like really guide them in a North Star and align all the incentives?
Yeah. I mean, from what I can gather in my 8 months there, they really were crying out for some vision and direction and really, let's get back to what made Red Robin great, and so I think that was definitely, I think, a big part of what we felt. I think, the managing partner program is not a success yet, but I think there's some excitement about it out there. We basically said, hey, look, nobody's going to lose any money in 2024 when we move to this. That's not fair. And so we don't want that to happen. And, so we know there could be some questions and tweaks. And I think what we've done is we've really done a great job of communicating it through the operators, right? So we got the operator buy-in first, right? The operators, the market partners, when they went to it in March of this year, now they've been at almost a full year, there's buy-in already. They know this works, right? They know they can make more money, which is great, which is everybody wants to make more money. Maybe people won't say that, but the real deal is people want to make more money. And so, when you're just getting a salary and you got this funky bonus that you can't figure out how to hit on a quarterly basis, that makes it very difficult. And so I think, giving them the opportunity to really, drive their own income and really help themselves be successful, and we can support them in any manner is really going to be the key. And the operators, are I think excited about it. But obviously we're going to have to work through some things as we roll it out, because obviously it's the biggest compensation change the company's ever made.
Yeah, I was going to say, I mean, like, you're affecting an enormous like culture change here. I mean, a 50+ year business across 520 locations. It's a lot of personalities. It's thousands of business, lots and lots of personalities. So affect that change. How do you like simplify what that is? And then also changing the menu, 80% of the menu. So like, it reminds me of, I'm not sure you ever read the book The Shock Doctrine by Naomi Klein, which is
I know it, but
they call it like economic shock therapy. It's like boom, like making such like big change so quickly and trying to like get it done as fast as possible. And obviously there's like, not everyone's going to be very, very happy. You know what I mean? Obviously,
correct.
Change is not meant to be comfortable as well. And so, when I think about 80% of the menu changing, which is like a humongous part of that entire business, it's like people have come to expect something of Red Robin, and you've changed 80% of it. So like, I'm just curious personally now, like in terms of like that much change on the menu, which changes like people's perception of what Red Robin is, whilst also implementing a sort of formal ownership program, the managing partner program, where people get a percent of the profit. But the menus change. I imagine for you in your position that you had to really allay those fears that the change is for the better.
Yeah, absolutely. And I believe that the operators know that the change was necessary. And we didn't necessarily change 80% of the menu, but 80% of the menu has been touched, right? Or improved. So better products, but it's still new, right? And it's still change. So again, I think your point is dead on, right? Because change is difficult. And we did hear some of that at the leadership advisory panel. They were like, okay, we've got a lot of change. We've got this managing partner program coming. Can we take it easy for a bit now and just get good at it? And I think that was, if and I don't know that I've even asked GJ this, but I would tell you that I would think that, the goal was to make the changes as quickly as possible and then let everybody focus on getting really good at it. Because repetition, it's like the golf swing, right? I'm not a very good golfer because I don't play a lot, right? And there's not a lot of repetition in my swing. It's like anything, practice makes perfect. And so I think at this point in time, we've got the North Star vision, we've got the new products, we know we're ramping up, hospitality. We want to have the unbridled hospitality and guest service. We've added managers, we've added bussers back because the past leadership had cut the bussers out. So we've added staff for them to be able to execute better in the restaurants. And we still have a ways to go there. Yeah. But I believe that everybody understands that now we're heading forward. Let's get good at what we're doing and let's grow revenues. Let's grow sales one by one, restaurant at a time. And I think that's the goal. And, you brought up something a second ago that made me think about the entrepreneurial spirit versus something that might have happened in the past. And one that was asking a question about some of the trainers in the restaurants and say, hey, we need to improve our training again. We got away from it after COVID and we made cuts and we're just bringing in people and we're not training them properly. What can we do? And we've been working on that all year, by the way. And so he was like, I'd really like to be able to have a program where we could pay our lead trainers and our head learning coaches is what we call them, and our lead learning coaches, where we pay them an extra 50 cents or an extra $1 an hour or whatever it might be. And, so everybody in the room was really intrigued by the question, and you could see them, they were almost sitting on pins and needles waiting to say, is it okay to do this? And the head of operations, Jesse Griffith, goes, I'd rather you're the managing partner. What do you need to do to take care of your people? Versus the company say, hey, we've got this 50-cent deal or $1 deal, or they get an extra free meal or whatever it might be. It's like, what do you feel like you need to do in your restaurant? Yeah. So there's going to be ownership. Correct. Back to the ownership mentality. So unwinding some of the past of always trying to say, what is the company going to do? It's like, what are you going to do in your restaurant? Because we can't run 500 restaurants sitting in an office in Englewood, Colorado. That's not possible, right? The operators need to tell us what needs to happen in those restaurants. And that's the shift that's taking place as we speak. And it's going to be exciting to watch over the next 2 or 3 years. And I said it before, I think Megan is going to come in and just do a phenomenal job. She's, Villanova masters and all those kind of things that I don't have from LSU. So she's going to be a lot better and smarter than the Louisiana boy. So I think it's going to be a great time to watch Red Robin rise for sure.
And and again, it's a question of like putting the reps in, so to speak. You know what I mean? Like improving that swing. Like you made a practice makes perfect reference, and I was going to stop you and say, didn't Vince Lombardi say that practice does not make perfect? He says perfect practice makes perfect.
Perfect. Exactly right. No doubt. Correct. You have to do it correctly.
You got to do it correctly, because let me tell you, my swing needs a lot of perfect practice to get better. But it's interesting in the sense that like I think a lot about that, even like say with my own team as well, is like the responsibility and the expectation of the responsibility is something that I try to like teach, hone, kind of train effectively, because it's like, I'm very much a subscriber to this Legos theory, which is like comfortability, adaptability, and flexibility in the job. Because ultimately, like, you can be asked to do anything, and there's so many problems or challenges that you can be faced with that were I to look at just my job spec, I would, you just wouldn't do them, and like, how do you engender that type of entrepreneurialism within people? And so I do think a lot about like, how do you give responsibility? And it's very much just like relaying that message, that like you're an owner, like this is like an expectation. And it's very cool to hear that, which is like people in these leadership meetings, like asking like, what should we do? And then you guys saying, well, you guys are on the ground. Like, what do you think you should do? And turning that on them, because it's like their success is your success. and their success gets them a piece of that pie, which is kind of a phenomenal sort of like culture change that it's amazing that they're already coming around to that. And to your point, like how this is going to look in the next 6, 12, 18, 24 months, probably has you filled with unbelievable excitement, especially as you kind of move out, transitioning out of your role and you're able to see it from the outside and hear that this is going to be a success. I mean, it sounds like you've kind of really implemented quite a program here, because again, it's like this economic shock therapy that you have applied so much in one go, and it's like, go to work. Yeah. I mean, I'm very excited even like hearing more about it,
So, I mean, I think in the people department, as we kind of get close probably to wrapping this thing up, would be my guess. One of the things that I tried to
go on forever.
Yeah, we could. That's very easy. So one of the things that, I tried to reinforce with them was like, I'd rather you make a decision with your mind and your heart trying to do the right thing than not do anything at all.
Yeah.
Right? We can fix stuff. Right? This is not brain surgery. This is not open heart surgery. This is burgers and bottomless fries, bottomless fun, and brews, right? Cold beer. That's what we're talking about here. We're not talking about rocket science here, right? It's not talking about, Elon Musk launching, a rocket. We can fix whatever we need to fix. So I'd rather someone make a decision for what they believe are the right reasons than not make a decision and wait for somebody to tell them what to do. And that's how you learn, and that's how you grow. And it's okay. Mistakes are going to happen. And so I think, creating that culture, and GJ's great about that, creating that culture where, hey, look, let's get this flywheel going. Let's make some decisions. Let's take some action. And you know what? If we need to tweak or redo something, that's okay. We'll figure it out. We'll fix that. So I think really creating that mentality has been a big part of what I've been trying to do in the organization. And, always try to, I guess never take yourself too seriously, right? Always try to have a little fun with things and not take yourself too seriously, regardless of what your role is. And, I think, GJ does that extremely, extremely well. Yeah. When he walks into a room, everybody's like, oh, that's a CEO, but to him, it's really, I'm just GJ. I'm just this guy, right? It's just here as well. So I think really creating that where people feel free to speak up, speak their mind, get the operators' opinions, get the restaurant support centers people's opinions, so we can make sure that we're all working together. Again, creating that synergy to create that operations focused company that can really elevate what we're doing from a food and a guest and a sales and profits. Once you get the food fix, which we've done a lot of this year, and then obviously continue to staff as we can to elevate the guest experience and provide that great hospitality, right? You do those things, sales will come. They will come. It's like the field of dreams. You build it and they will come. So if you do those things over time, and the perfect practice makes perfect, right? And you continue to execute in the restaurants and take care of your people and create a great culture for your people to have fun in, fun-loving culture, which is, again, another big part of who Red Robin has always been. Get those things back, then Red Robin, and then long term, they're going to be back. They're going to be back where they should be.
Well, I can think of no better way to finish, because I'm actually inspired with all that information. Maybe I should set up my own, get it down. It's awesome. Mark, it's been an absolute pleasure getting you on here. I've enjoyed every second of this.